had when you were talking there was, what do you mean by obviously buying in green credentials and things like that?
Yeah, this is quite a controversial one, but it needs to be said, really. So what we want is we want organisations to reduce their carbon. When we look at something like carbon offsetting, that doesn't necessarily reduce the negative impact of the carbon of that organisation. So 3 years ago, offsetting was all the rage. Everybody was talking about how they were offsetting their carbon. In some instances, that's greenwashing in itself, depending on the industry. And greenwashing, just to caveat, is where the environmental credentials of an organisation are exaggerated or misleading in how presented, so that you assume that a company is doing more for the environment than they actually are. And offsetting is one of those areas. Offsetting should be the very last thing you do. So the first is, it's not to say that offsetting is bad through and through, but if you're celebrating about offsetting and you've done nothing else, you're not understanding the problem. And the problem is that our climate is changing because of our emissions, and offsetting doesn't get you to the point of reducing your emissions. So let's take trees, for instance. If you're planting trees to offset your carbon, those trees probably don't reach maturity for 15 years. We have 10 years. And by when I'm saying maturity, they're not absorbing or sinking the carbon that we need them to for 15 years because they're still growing. So we have to wait 15 years for the trees you plant today to absorb the carbon. We have a 9-year, 10-year deadline of 2030, 2032, depending on degree of climate change and which report you're looking at. But between 8 and 12 years, we have to bring about considerable carbon reduction globally in order to keep the planet at a stable temperature increase below 1.5 ideally. And when firms are offsetting their carbon rather than reducing them, that's not getting us anywhere down that road. What that is doing is saying, I'm still a business that has a negative environmental impact, and I don't want to change my negative impact, but what I will do to keep you consuming from me is I will tell you that I'm offsetting it. But we now understand that that offsetting isn't going to come into effect for 15 years, and we have 10 years to bring about change. So plant those trees 100%, because in 15 years we'll need them, but that shouldn't be your main carbon reduction strategy. That's what you do when you can't reduce the carbon any other way.
Could you do it in terms of, so I'll give you a scenario actually that we're looking at, because that's, we're trying to tell a warts and all story. So it's really interesting this. So we are looking at we're trying to be better with office furniture. Looking at it from a point of view, lots of organizations have very high quality office furniture. But when they have a branding change or when they've just got a change of working style, well, the furniture no longer is fit for their purpose. So what we're looking to do is have a service which enables us to go do an audit of what they're looking to get out of their business, take it away and then take it to a recycle center. That would be, then we'll upcycle. We will recycle the parts, obviously, because there's quite a lot of parts that can be reused. And then the very final option, if necessary, is that we would go to a full recycle of everything in terms of the materials, so the plastics, the wood elements, the metal elements, and that, but only when we've exhausted all of the possible avenues for that type of furniture. But my big issue, so we're working with a partner on the recycle element, but my big issue was obviously at the moment, large vans and vehicles like that can obviously take the furniture from the office that we're taking it from to the recycle center is unfortunately going to be a diesel or a petrol vehicle. I can't get around that at this moment. Hopefully we will be able to get around that at some point, but at the moment that's our only option for the removal of those items. In my plan for this, we would offset that element because there's nothing I can currently do to get around that. Is that still the right situation? And but in the plan that when there is something that comes available that can support us, i.e. some kind of electric vehicle that can actually do that job and can pull that kind of weight comes along in our plan, it's that we look to obviously engage with that and completely reduce that completely. But for now, as a stopgap measure, because we're getting forced into it, is offsetting the right way to go about it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would urge that you're, and we'll go through this over time as we work with you, but I would urge that you're honest about that and really transparent about that. You're not trying to greenwash. So you're not saying, oh, aren't we brilliant because we've offset? You're saying we're doing this because we can't do anything else right now.
Okay, yeah.
And then offset it and be really honest that this is something that we have recognized as a risk, or this is a negative in our supply chain and we can't change it right now. We want to, we're looking at it, but this is what we're doing right now. So that you're not saying this is okay, look, we've made it okay, because you're not making it okay. It's not okay. You're just doing the best with a bad situation. And then when you're looking at offsets, not all offsets are the same. So there are valuable offsets, and we're going to see an increase in that over the next, hopefully, couple of years. We're starting to see it now, where biodiversity needs to be valued a lot more, and planting a tree is great, but planting a tree in the middle of a city that doesn't have a lot of trees is far more valuable than 20 in the country that have loads, because what trees do is a number of jobs. So trees will, over time, they will prevent flooding because the whole of their trunk will fill up with water. They store a huge amount of water depending on the species as they get older. So when they will prevent a lot of flooding, they stabilize the soil, so that prevents landslides. They provide shade, so they actually reduce the temperature in urban areas and rural areas and over homes. That's why traditionally you would have had a big tree in your garden that would have given you shade. And one of my favourite phrases that I think for me summarises sustainability really, the knowledgeable man, or the luckiest man, depending on the culture that you read this from, is the man that can plant a tree in the garden knowing that they will never sit in the shade of it. So you're paying it really forward, you're giving it to future generations. You'll see that tree planted and you'll nurture it through its infancy, but actually the benefit will come in future generations. And so that's why you should be planting trees. But right now, you're causing a problem with all of us are causing a problem with the carbon that we're offsetting. I just moved house, and the van that I hired, because I had lots of, ironically, plants that have gone to my brewer. So we've got a local brewery, and they've taken my plants while I'm staying in an Airbnb until our house is ready. So my brewer has got my plants on holiday, which is another sort of sustainable way of doing things. But the van that I took them in was diesel, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was the only van I could do, and there's nothing, it's just a reality of where we're at. I'm not happy about it, but that was the only option that I could find at the time. And I think we need to be a bit gentle with ourselves about these sorts of things, because you can't do all of the things. And there's also, as a really big part of sustainability, is it's about lifting everyone up. So when we, what we want from businesses, which we're not quite there yet, and it does seem very rose-tinted glasses, but what we want is for businesses to make profit from solving the problems of the world, not from causing them. So when we have a business with purpose, that is a genuine purpose of solving a problem, then we need to really celebrate those businesses.
Yeah, definitely.